your attendance today on this very important webinar. My partner, Joshua Kimona, is with us. Joshua, say hello to everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our weekly call. We've got a great call and got some great panelists with us today, and I love it when we're talking about the credit repair business and always trying to make it a better place for all of the CROs out there.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate everyone responding to our marketing for today's webinar. It's really important. As many of you may know, I was a founding chairman of a trade association. We had an office in Washington and did a lot of lobbying, and as a result of that, really have a great amount of respect for NACSO and the board and what they are doing and what they've accomplished, and of course, Nicholas Owens, their lobbyist as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce Randall Chestnut, a real good friend of ours, as well as a great leader in the credit repair industry. Randall, what we want to do, the strategy here is, this is your call. We want people to know about NACSO. We want people to know about what's going on in Washington, and what they need to do to be prepared. This is our industry, and the bottom line is if we're not careful, one day we'll wake up and there's 3 lines of legislation in some obscure bill somewhere that really hurts our industry. And we've all seen that happen before, and we don't want it to happen again. So the way to overcome that is to be involved. So, Randall, we really appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, well, thank you, Joel. And absolutely on that statement you made is correct. First, let me thank you guys for putting this together. I know you put a lot of work and effort into doing that, and I appreciate everyone that's on the call. Hope we can make this time valuable for you and kind of get you up to speed what's going on in the industry and how NACSO can help with that and improve the experience for the customers. Joel, do you want me to just go ahead and get started, or
absolutely, Randall. Go ahead and continue. And you're very welcome, by the way. We believe in fundamentally taking control of our destiny, and the only way that we see that can happen is everyone on this call. We've got to endorse NACSO. We've got to be a member. Regulators will always find something to regulate, and we just need to, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But we need to have a voice, and we need to be able to even have influential votes in our favor to really preach our agenda.
Yeah, again, absolutely on that. If I may, I would like to introduce someone that's very important and dear to us at NACSO, Mr. Nick Owens with Magnolia Strategies. Nick, are you there?
I think we lost both Nick and Joel. Let's go ahead and continue.
That's fine.
Ourselves.
Well, sure, we can handle that. First, let me give a brief overview of what the webinar is going to talk about, and first start off with how National Association of Credit Service Organizations got started and what our goals are and what they've grown into. Initially started out in 2007, just a couple of small small groups with big ideas, and it's grown into a little bit more of a movement, and it became more organized, just like anything else that you first start off. We had the idea that we would like to organize the industry to have a standard of excellence, so to speak, and someone that they could fall back on for guidance on what is prudent and what is not prudent on as it pertains to our industry, and then really work towards having someone that could have a voice for our industry in Washington. And from my knowledge, I don't believe that there's any other association that's out there that actually has someone that's working day to day with regulators and legislators and the staffers and all that's involved. So, that's really what we had tasked Nick to help us with and give us some guidance, make sure that at the end of the day, like Josh had pointed out, we care about both the industry and the customers, which is the higher bit order for the regulators. They're there, and legislators are there to protect the customers. And we agree that there needs to be some protection for those. It's debatable on what that is. So that's where we come together and help, and from members and people working in the industry, from all different types of board members that we have that were either ex-executives with the credit bureaus, which we do have on the board, to people who are in the industry and attorneys who work around the industry. And so we have a really good mix on the board to speak to those issues. I've broken down the presentation to 3 main topics. The one being guidance, and talk a little bit about where NACSO can be that soundboard, so to speak, for you to get some guidance on or some clarity on maybe a compliancy issues. Awareness, I'm going to have Nick talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments that we have in Washington, and where we need to move toward, and things we need to listen for and be a part of, whether it be getting involved in your local legislator to going to Washington, which we always invite people to come out to do that, and then how you can get involved. So I think we'll just dive into the guidance part. NACSO believes that we should be a part of the solution and not part of the problem. And what is meant by that, CROW is not very many pages. It's very brief on some key items. And in its brevity, some people decide that it's not that important, and it's very important. I've listed on the screen a few of the items that are just key topics, and we did a governmental affairs conference a few years back, and we actually invited the FTC, and they graced us with coming by and giving us some viewpoints on how they view credit repair, and where they kind of stand on that. And they were very firm on where they stand on a couple of key issues. And along with him was a district attorney for Washington DC, and he was very clear on a big one that they have a problem with, and that's deceptive advertising. And basically what he did is he just said he Googled credit repair, the first credit repair company he came to. The first thing he seen was, we delete negative items, we delete late payments, and they just go down the list. And he viewed that as deceptive advertising, and he would be right, because we cannot delete anything. That's not what we do in our industry. And I'm not here to bash anybody who are saying that. If you are, I'm just here to give you guidance in what some of the interpretation of what is meant by that. I'm not an attorney, although we have attorneys on the board, and they can speak more to that. We're just here to kind of list some of the key issues and make you aware of what is deceptive advertising in this claim or false claims. But I think the one that's the biggest topic, and that I was hoping we would get Nick on board with to speak on, is advance fees. Have we got Nick back on board to call yet? If not, I can talk about it. No.
Should we hear?
Hi, Randall. Hello.
Nick, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, feel free to introduce yourself first, and then we were just going to talk about advance fees and then how they are being interpreted. Can you speak a little bit on that, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Thank you, Randall. Thank you for your leadership with NACSO. Joel, thank you for the opportunity to join with many of your clients and those interested in the credit repair industry. Today, more than ever, credit repair firms need to be engaged in public policy. Either, we often say either you have a seat at the table or you're on the menu. And I don't think any of us want to be on the menu. And every day, credit repair organizations are helping consumers navigate their dispute process, achieve the American dream, whether it's to keep a job with a security clearance, whether it is to get a home or a new car, or frankly just to have a good financial outlook. But there are regulatory concerns that are impacting this industry and ultimately impacting consumers. NACSO has led the way over the last few years with many of the key members who have really, with their time and treasure and talent, come to Washington. And I can tell you, NACSO, as you stated articulately well, Randall, didn't have a face in D.C. a few years ago. And it was just, perhaps some of the perceptions were that it was bandit signs out there. We can take care, we can clean up your credit report, whatever. There are a lot of concerns regulators had, and rightly so. And many of the members of NACSO also have a keen interest in making sure there's integrity in this process. So we look at the payment of services. It's an issue of when it may be paid. It's an issue of interpretation by statute. CROA, frankly, is very clear that payment should be made after services have been rendered. So then we go into the issue of what does that mean? And that's where you have regulatory interpretations by the regulator, the Federal Trade Commission, who many are great folks there, and they want to protect consumers, and we want to join with them. And NACSO certainly joins hand in hand in the same purpose. But the concern is you have to provide a service to a consumer and be paid appropriately, and when you should be based on when your services have been rendered. So the Federal Trade Commission, unfortunately, has an interpretation that you must significantly improve one's credit score before you may charge for their services. That is so subjective. Randall may need 100 points on his credit score to quote be significant for a certain loan. Joel may need 20. So it's like it doesn't make sense, and there's not an Office of Significant Improvement of FTC to decide on all these consumer credit reports. Confidentially and pretty forthright, they've acknowledged that that's overshooting the runway. And so we're working with them to help shape the right direction that should go. I can tell you, there's Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill that have a keen interest in protecting consumers, but also believe it is a mess for a consumer to go out and do this on their own, and they need professional help. Consumer-centric groups such as the National Consumer Law Center joins with us in the thought that sometimes consumers don't know how to navigate the process, don't want to mess with it, want to hire someone else to do it. So where we are is to work with the FTC to formulate that, to work with our allies on Capitol Hill who want to support consumers having access to this. So it is a process. It has taken some time, but we are working toward that end. Randall, I hope that kind of shared a bit about the payment of services and the advance payment. So that continues to be a concern.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Nick. And now I do want, because there's a lot of back and forth about monthly services and a pay for delete, and if those would be considered or interpreted differently according to the FTC's interpretation. Do you get the feeling that they would interpret those as being the pay for delete would meet their requirements, or no, Nick?
I mean, ultimately, there's of course a judge ruling that squares perfectly with the view of NACSO, Judge Breyer from Northern District, California, that it was a case of an issue of once you issue whatever's in your contract for services. So you all have contracts with your clients. What is in that contract, based on what you say the service will be, should be paid for that after you completed that service, whatever that may be. So it may be per item issue. It may be we're going to provide this for 3 months, and you're going to pay us at least a certain time. Whatever's based on the contract, that's what should be the focus of when you get paid, and that's ultimately the outcome. Of course, the FTC also looks at the issue of the consumer net impression, and that is the issue. What does the consumer really? What do they believe they're getting? Do they think they're getting a 750 credit score? What do they think they're getting? And that should be based on what's in the contract. But NACSO has led the way in providing very direct consumer net impression disclosures, and I would encourage you all to take a look at that at www.nacso.org. Take a look at that consumer net impression and consider that in your own contracts. It's very important to, again, join with the regulator, acknowledge their concerns, but certainly you should be paid based on the contract with services. But the consumer net impression is that additional factor that the regulator considers.
Thanks for that clarification, Nick. Basically, they don't view those any differently according to their interpretation. I didn't have this screen up to go to each one of those that I have listed on it and discuss them in detail. However, at the end, if you may have questions about one of those, we'd certainly try to squeeze them in. But like Nick pointed out, if you have questions, if you're a current member or if you're not a member, feel free to email us at info@nacso.org. We'd be happy to answer those questions for you if we can get at least some idea of what. I wouldn't say that we could always nail down in this, on advanced fees. We can just give you some guidance on where you want to go, for example, for the proper disclosures that are needed or the state and federal requirements. So I want to move on now to awareness. And this is really where Nick shines. He has done a great job in representing our industry in Washington and the accomplishments that he's achieved. And I've been out there a few times with him and gone around, and I think everyone in Washington knows you, Nick, or at least it feels that way. Can you give us an idea of where we started and where we've came to in relations to meeting with these regulators and getting some movement in a positive light on our industry, and then how you've really one of the big things was that Sentinel report that the FTC does. Can you talk about those, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely, Randall. And the Sentinel report, which you may be familiar with, everyone, is the FTC annual report on consumer complaints. It's compiled by the FTC and derived from information provided by BDBs, consumer organizations, state attorneys general, and they provide that collected at the FTC. And for years, in the top 10 of consumer complaints has been credit repair. And it should not have been. Over 1 million complaints, credit repair, in the past few years, there's been about 1,200, 1,300 complaints, less than 0.1%, and that gets into the issue of why is credit repair there. So credit repair was grouped together with advanced fee loans and other credit products and services, and it really skewed the view of credit repair. It's now there were romance scams had more complaints, frankly, than credit repair. Magazines had more complaints. Certainly the credit bureaus had over 30,000 complaints. So we worked with the FTC through NACSO's leadership and engaging in a meaningful, healthy, regulated environment, and worked with FTC to have that cleaned up. And frankly, especially this past January, earlier this year, credit repair was not in that top 10%, was not in the top 25, was nowhere near that. So that is an accomplishment, I will tell you, from a regulator point of view, is having the regulator acknowledge, well, you're not in the top 10%. But, of course, for years, there's been a perception. Their consumer groups issue their own reports on top consumer complaints, and that continues to be an ongoing concern. Where NACSO was a few years ago, where it is today, it has a seat at the table with congressional committees, House Financial Services Committee, Senate Banking Committee, the respective commerce committees, in a way that when there's an issue of credit, consumer credit, NACSO is called to get a thought on that. CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that is an area, so often folks in industry say, I don't want to talk with a regulator, I don't want them to know me, but I tell you, much rather have a more meaningful relationship with them early on than get that letter or that FedEx and they're going to investigate you or have a civil demand on you. So we've worked with NACSO leadership with the CFPB. They've sought out and we've had members come in. They want to hear about what's the dispute process like for consumers. And, of course, the CFPB is now regulating the credit reporting agencies while the FTC retains jurisdiction of credit repair. So we have made a lot of accomplishments with the key members on the Hill. There was a significant, very significant hearing in the Senate in May, the Senate on the focus of credit reporting, the accuracies and how they're impacting consumers. You had several senators there, had their own personal experiences, have this been a problem, and they really took the CDIA, which is the Trade Association for Credit Reporting Firms, to task on this issue. About 3 credit scores that you can get that, frankly, are just while everyone should be able to have a business environment to make money, it has a perception that it's truly free when it's not. So there's a lot of concerns that the senators brought up at that hearing. Credit repair, when the credit reporting agencies wanted to blast credit repair industry has been fraudulent and just jamming their system with mail every day, and the senator, the chairman of the committee, said, no, you can't tell me that you're jammed and that's a problem, you can't deal with inaccuracies. and clean up these credit reports, so she didn't buy his argument. But I can say the credit reporting agencies have a keen interest, and many of them have expressed this to members on the Hill, to open CROA, to open your legislation, your statute that you operate in, to allow them, for certain firms, to get engaged in this business. And that's a concern. You open Pandora's box anytime you open legislation. And, of course, there's even a line in certain legislation that states that if it's determined this came from a credit repair firm, you can basically disregard it. So there's a lot of work that NACSO has to do, but can't do it alone. And there's several companies that are leading supporters of this. And I encourage you all, if you have a keen interest in your livelihood and your business, we need you. NACSO needs you to get more involved with the association, because that's who's representing your interests. So on that point, Randall, I would say while there has been progress, there's a lot more to be done, and it needs everyone to be on board if you support these issues that NACSO is focused on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick. And that's a really good lead-in for involvement and how people get involved. And if I may, just make a quick point, and this is coming from Randall Chestnut, not the president of NACSO, but Randall Chestnut, just a business owner. I've never been one to say, bad things about good people or bad things about bad people. I always try to say, what's the truth, and try to lean towards the saying good things, because there's always something good to say about everything, everyone. So I know that our industry spends a lot of time bashing the credit bureaus, but I do think that the credit bureaus do a great job. I just think they could do a better job if they could figure out a way to work with our industry and not work against us. And I really believe that, and I think that if we could work towards getting some dialogue with that it would, at the end of the day, it would improve the consumer's experience with them. It would improve the overall accuracy of the information, which is what we all strive for. And I don't think anyone would disagree with those 2 points. So I just wanted to get on my pulpit about that, and I'll come back down to how can you get involved. There's 3 ways that you can get involved in what Nick's call to action. One is, I would ask that you refrain from negative dialogue about our industry, because if you can imagine that you're putting on your website that you're the best thing since sliced bread and all these other people are scammers, well, you got to remember that that's on the internet, and someone who is not maybe seeking it out, and maybe they're doing a story, will read about that and say, well, these people in the industry are saying there's people in the scammer, so there must be. And there may or may not be. It's just not a good practice to bash your own industry. So I would ask that you, if you currently have marketing, website and stuff, that you try to frame that in a more positive light, and just be specific about what differentiates your business from someone else, not saying that they're scammers, because I don't think that's a fair assessment of the majority of the people that are in our industry. And I talk to, on a daily basis, a number of people, and they're really care deeply about their customers, and I think that's more true than not true. And are there people out there that could do a better job? Absolutely, but isn't that always the case? So that's number one. Try to do your best to refrain from that, because it doesn't benefit anyone at the end. It actually works towards against you. The second thing you can do is to get involved in the companies that are in your area, the other credit repair companies. I know it's always hard to talk with other businesses or competitors in your industry, because they always may feel like you're trying to steal their secret sauce. And I would advise you on being open to communicating with other people in our industry. And you don't need to give away your secret sauce, but you do need to protect your industry. And I think Nick drove home the point that it's more important than ever that we all get involved, whether you can get involved as a member, whether you can get involved as just removing the negative banter, or just get involved in your area and talking with your local legislators and your local staffers. And certainly you can write us, and we could help you out with that. Maybe Nick could give you some few talking points if you're not if you've never done something like that, and we would like for that to for all of our members to get involved, especially in the local areas. And the third thing is just become a member and start contributing. Contributing, we always say, your time, talent, and treasure. That to move this battleship forward, so to speak, it requires, at the end of the day, it's just like a business. It requires money, it requires people, and it requires dedication. We got the dedication and some of the people, but it's the money that we need, whether it's to support someone's campaign that's more credit friendly, or to just add new benefits and features that for our members that can benefit the customer or the consumer ultimately. Now, I have on the screen, if you decided that you would like your company to join, and I invite you to do that. Its initial enrollment is $299. What that's going to cover, we're going to look over your documents, your websites, all the stuff that we know are really key points to be mindful of, and give you some guidance on that, maybe where you could go, maybe hey, we know from this, for example, in your agreement that you can't have the federal disclosure attached to your agreement. It has to be a total separate disclosure form. A lot of people don't know that. Just some stuff like that. And you get one exam that's given by NACSO that you must score an 80% on. And it talks about a little bit more in depth on key things that you should know if you are in this industry. And then you have a monthly, depending on the number of employees. You see it's anywhere from $25 to $65 a month. At the end of the day, I know that that those can be intimidating for smaller businesses. The $299, we're aware that that's for some people is hard to come up with. And we've tried to do our best on that, but there's just so much involved in doing that's where we ended up with that. And then the monthly, we tried to be reasonable on that, and you can see how we kind of ran that through. That the benefit of $25 a month, if we can get, it's always about the number of people that we can get, and the number, from 10 to 100 makes a drastic difference on supporting certain issues and getting things out there. So for our vendors, if there happen to be anyone on there that supports our industry, whether it be software or any other services, we invite you to visit NACSO.org and shoot us an email at info@NACSO.org. I have it there on the screen. And we would love to talk to you about possibly being a supporter of our industry. It's $249 for enrollment and $249 on a monthly. We could get more in detail on what that would include. I didn't think this was the time to talk about that. We just wanted to get a conversation with people, show them what NACSO is all about, what we provide currently, and what we'd like to build towards, and how we're working to protect the industry and its customers. If we can, I would like to open it up for questions if we can do that, Joel. I don't know how you want to do that, but I would certainly, while we got Nick on board, and myself, we could answer some questions possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone has any questions, we apologize, there's some sound quality issues, but the media maybe having some trouble today, I'm not sure. But if you would begin to type in any questions that you have, I'll relay them to the appropriate person. One of the things that I had to jump off for just a second, so I may have not heard you guys talking about this as much. I want to make sure that we recover this in sufficient detail. Nick, let's talk about the issue that some legislators, or actually the bureaus, are looking to reopen CROA, and let's talk more about that. I know that's concerning to me for sure, and I know it should be concerning to everybody else.
Thank you, Joel. Yes, as I had mentioned, the credit reporting firms have pursued with various members of Congress to open CROA to allow them to operate and give exclusions and to be in the credit repair industry, basically, is what it's about. However, consumer groups that push back on that, there's old added to the Fox Garden